Howdy, I'm going to show you how to work a few of these IRR problems. Uh, so we'll just go through the Excel. You can see in the first program, or the first example, I've got, again, some angels and some VCs that are in on the investing. I'm going to give you just a real quick Reader's Digest version of the deal so that we don't take up a lot of time with details that won't necessarily help us work the IRR. The angels invested initially $500,000. They had to come back a year later and put an additional $1 million called a follow-on investment. They didn't put anything for the next several years, and eventually in year 6, uh, the company sold for $30 million. At that point, the angels owned 30% of it, so that gave them a $9 million payout. Venture capitalists came in year 3. At the end of year 3, they made a $3 million investment to get 25% of the business. They held that for a couple of years, and then the business returned $8.5 million off of that $3 million investment. So there's the basic setup. Now let's compute the internal rate of return. So remember, we type equals IRR, open the parentheses, and then I just take my cursor, click and hold on the left mouse button and highlight all of the cash flows and hit enter. And you can see the angels made that mythical 40% annual return. Now let's see about the venture capitalists. Again, equals IRR, open the parentheses, highlight the numbers, and return. Notice they came out almost exactly the same, $42 million. And you go, wait a minute, how is that return higher for the venture capitalists when they invested more money than did the angels and yet got less money than did the angels? That has to do with the time power of money. Let me show you a couple of things about the program. The first is the common mistake people make is they forget the minus sign. So if I just enter a 3 here instead of a -3, you're going to see them go, I can't compute it because I've given it nothing but positive cash flows and it doesn't understand how I'm supposed to come up with a rate of return when all I've done is gotten money from it. It never took me any money to make that money. Other thing that I'll show you is I could have loaded in zeros here and changed my matrix such that I capture all of these years. I got to make sure I get it right. You're going to see the answer isn't going to change. So trailing zeros won't matter. But notice if I change this to a minus number, or a plus number for that matter, even $200,000 in the beginning, it changes the value quite a bit because now it had that $200,000 invested all the way in that early year. So let me show you one more example. Here we're just going to assume that there was only an angel investor. In year 0, they invested $500,000. In year 2, they invested $1 million. Again, because they're investments, they have negative numbers before them. And in year 2, they had to put an additional $500,000 in to try to keep the business afloat. Then in year 3, they received dividend payouts of $200,000. Year 4, year 5, the same. And ultimately, they walked away with $3.2 million. You're going to see that the rate of return on this deal isn't that great. So again, I type equals IRR, open the parentheses, highlight all the cash flows, hit enter, 15%. The reason for that is I got back a total of $3.8 million off of my investment of $2 million, but it took several years to get that back. If I took these early years and took this number down to even as little as $250,000, you can see that makes quite a bit of difference. So when you hold on to money for a long time, even small amounts of money make a difference. But notice it doesn't have to be always negatives followed by a bunch of zeros followed by a big positive. There can be cash flow every year. I could even take one of these and make them negative. I could take this, say, well, instead of getting $3.2 million in the end, I got $6.6 million. Wow, now that looks great. Now I'm up to 35% IRR. Okay, But what if here, instead of making $200,000, I had to loan an additional $200,000 to keep it afloat? You're going to see it's going to change the number. Not all that much, incidentally, because it's a relatively near year. If I went back and changed this to a positive, got rid of the negative, and just went back and changed that back to the minus $500,000, you'll see that 35% go down quite a bit. Again, shows the time power of money. Feel free to go back and read or watch this again as many times as you need to understand the internal rate of return function. It's really important to understand the time value of money and to calculate investor returns. I hope this helps, but if you struggle with your homework, don't hesitate to give me a shout. Thanks.